Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of The Bliss of the Abyss. I am, of course, your host. That's why I'm talking at the beginning. My name is Robert Neumark Jones. I'm an actor from England. And I also am a comedian called Ruskin Denmark. Confused? That's the point. So am I. Never mind. There's much more important things to be getting on with, like the European Super League, which sounds like a load of bollocks, and Mourinho being fired. And, they flew a helicopter on the surface of Mars. Oh, yeah, and I've got to do my taxes. So, busy Monday, hey? How's yours going out there in the world? This week we have on Tom Leo, who was the very first guest on this podcast, and at the rate this is going, the very last guest. Me and Tom talk about all kinds of things. The first sort of 20 minutes is quite COVID heavy, so if you've had enough of that, skip over that. Tom no longer takes full responsibility for the pandemic as he did in our original chat in March of last year. Partial, I'd say at this point. So he's back in touch with reality. But after that, we talk about a lot more interesting things, including but not limited to noodling. I didn't know what that was either, but I'll let your brain go where it wants to with that. What's happening with me? Thanks for asking. I'm doing all right. This is my birthday week. Yes, that's a thing. So this weekend, it will be an official new age that I go by. No, I'm not going to tell you what it is, because I have to maintain some level of anonymity and secrecy. I'm not an open book. You can't read every page. Nevertheless, I will have done another 365 days round. Have I got any wiser? Have I got any older? Yes. What's new with me? Still persisting with the teeth. Do you want to hear me put them in? All right. There we go. Does it sound different when I talk? I always think it does, but I've tricked many people. I've tricked many people who didn't realise that I was wearing them at the time. So, they are making my teeth straighter, and I'm no longer vomiting when I wear them. So I'd say that's a marked improvement on a few different fronts. Marked or marked improvement. This improvement has been marked and found wanting. So that's good, isn't it? So hopefully by the time we all come out of lockdown, I'll have my Irish passport sorted out. I have a nice new set of teeth. I'll be 1 year older. I've got brand new headshots. Oh, goodness me, I'm ready. Put me on stage again. I want to perform. Oh. I went to see the physio today, and they said that I can now do deep squats and jumps, little hops. So, everything that was so wrong in my life is slowly starting to get fixed. By everything, I mean some of the things. God, what a year it has fucking been. But what's happening? We are in the UK coming out of lockdown step by step. We've just had some more things eased. Everything's heading in the right direction. People are talking more sensibly about the way to move on forwards now that we have to live with COVID-19 rather than despite of COVID-19. So that's good. And I am waffling. I'm sure you can tell because I like talking to you and I hope you like listening to me. But I will not talk anymore. Instead, I will just leave you to enjoy the ramblings of myself and Mr. Thomas Leo. I thought this was the music was going to be a big reveal when I finally saw your face. But...
there's no reveal when you see my face. It is exactly what you expected.
It is what I expected. Not much has changed.
Very little. How you doing?
I'm okay, man. How are you?
Yeah, good. You're looking younger somehow. I don't know how
it's all the makeup I put on before every episode.
Ooh, smart.
Even the solo ones, just
even the ones where it's just you in your lounge room in your pants.
Yeah,
trying not to cry wank on tape.
Yeah, trying desperately, but still trying to cry wank. Just trying not to get caught doing it.
God no, that's the worst. That's the worst thing to get caught doing. I think. Wow, not the worst.
What's the telltale giveaway? Is it that, or is it?
It's the sobbing. It's the sobbing, and I think the particular type of sobbing. It's like a combination of sobbing and pleasurable moans.
Right. Because earlier,
I hear.
So the rumours are.
So, yeah, if the rumors are true.
Because earlier, maybe you could tell me this, as I understand you're a medical doctor. I was very tired. I'd had a busy day. I lay down on the bed for a brief break before I had to talk to you. Had to, being the key word there, had to. And water just started leaking out of my face, mainly eyeballs, and streaming. Now, is that sobbing? Is that sadness?
What is that? Did you have something in your eye?
Tears?
Yep. Okay. That might be what it was. I've always taken sobbing to be the kind of almost like glottally blocked exhalation, like your body wants to exhale and then it catches in your throat and you go.
I've always thought that was blubbing.
Yeah, that could be blubbing too. Yep. To me, blubbing is onomatopoeic, so it's like
right.
Yeah, it's
Go
like
on, let's hear a blub.
Oscar, anyone? Come on, that was gold.
Oh, yeah. I laughed. I cried. I laughed. I blubbed.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that was sadness or just exhaustion or a mixture of both. But I was just freely crying before, so I got it out.
Both. Sometimes you have to. Yeah. Sometimes I have to watch that scene where Bambi dies, and then just after I've finished cry wanking, I'll watch some sad movies and have a proper cry.
Okay, at least you do them in order. You don't.
Yeah. You couldn't do them the other way around. That's sociopathic.
No. Yeah. No. You're a normal person.
I'm a normal person. Loose definition.
So how have you been? I can't believe how long it's been since I've actually seen your face. COVID is fucking weird.
It has been months. It's been since, what? Nearly Christmas, yeah?
Yeah.
Must have been.
Yeah.
It's been a long while.
Because we've had the whole fucking lockdown, haven't we?
Yeah. And I've gone back to work.
And you've gone back to work, yeah.
We had lockdown and then kind of lockdown and then we're still, you can't do fun things, but you have to go and do the stuff you don't want to do.
Yeah. And then 2 days ago, was it? They lifted the pubs. And have you seen the pictures of Soho yet?
No, I haven't. What happened? I was there the other day. I was there yesterday.
Oh, well, what was it like when you were there?
It was marvelous in the sense that it felt like it was trying desperately to return to normalcy, the normalcy from prior to COVID. But the characters were out.
They're comparing it to like VE Day.
I don't know what that is.
That stands for Victory in Europe Day. That's when the
Nazis is that a World War II thing?
Officially defeated.
Officially defeated. I don't think they were ever officially defeated. If modern history if recent history has been anything to go by, I think that might have been a premature celebration.
But that's what these poor fools are comparing it to. I think I know that, man. Anyway, let's not get bogged down. Here's a picture of revelers in Soho, and the title is "No Social Distancing, No Masks, Anger and Joy as Soho Streets Packed with Revelers After Lockdown Eases." I
mean, what do they expect the people to do? To wear their masks and eat underneath the mask?
Yeah.
I'm always like, when people put these different measures into place or then rescind those measures, I'm always fascinated to hear the reactions, because I'm like, what are you expecting, and how is reality not meeting your expectations? And how are your expectations wrong? Because it's not reality that's wrong. Reality is just reality. You expected something different from what was going to happen, and I'd like to know why you made that screw up.
What and how you possibly came to that assumption that the British public would decide, well, there's already 6 people in that pub, I won't go and try and join in.
Yeah.
Who's doing that? That's not going to happen. These places have been booked out for months, so this shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone.
God, no. And I mean, let's face it, outside, you walk down a narrow path outside, you're in closer contact to more than 6 people on your casual, allotted 15 minutes of daily exercise that you're allowed during lockdown, than you are there. I mean, at least everyone's facing.
I know. And the transmission outside is, what is it? 1 in 1,000?
Yeah. It's very small.
But look, I thought this was an interesting quote about this. Maybe you want to read it. Here we go. Look.
US/British playwright and broadcaster Bonnie Greer, who lives in the area, tweeted her
Humble
concern.
brag.
Humble brag, yeah. Living in Soho, you're doing pretty good for yourself. Feel sorry for these people jammed up in the road at the end of my street, she wrote. No social distancing, no masks, landlords dancing around in glee like the chorus of the Royal Ballet. Cops have given up, choppers overhead trying to gauge the crowds. I guess it's sad. It doesn't look sad to me, judging by the pictures. Everyone looks to be having a marvelous time. Even that cop in the middle has kind of like I'm trying to look tough, but I just want to squeal like a little girl.
Yeah. These people don't look sad.
Nope.
Even these policemen don't look. They look actively happy.
Perhaps the young lady is sad that she is at home rather than out with the revelers. Maybe Miss Greer has mistaken her own sense of I don't want to say jealousy, but there I've already done it for something else. I mean, but although perhaps she is genuinely concerned.
I guess. I think part of what rubs me the wrong way about this quote, the thing about landlords dancing around in glee, like the chorus of the Royal Ballet, it's like, well, they haven't made money in a year.
Yeah.
Like, this is finally some custom.
Yeah.
They have just been like, of course they're happy. Why wouldn't they? And everyone's happy that they're able to just be outside and with other people.
Yeah. It sounds like hyperbole, but then if it isn't hyperbole, it gives you an indication of just how messed up things have been for them. Because I don't want to generalize Londoners, but you don't see a lot of them dancing for glee in the streets, especially for no reason.
Yes, and certainly not as choreographed as if they were in the Royal Ballet, which gives it a very fancy air.
It's impressive, isn't it? If you can dance just purely for glee's sake, as though you are in the Royal Ballet, then I think you probably missed a trick being a pub landlord. You probably should have done ballet for a living. I don't know what the pay's like, but in the last year, I reckon they might have done better than pub landlords.
I find it interesting as well that, someone says like cops have given up. It's like, okay, you want the alternative then. You want them to round up and detain and there'll be violence and put all these people in prison. Is that's what you want?
Giving up what?
Well, what's the alternative here? Yeah, exactly. Given up what?
Are they not enforcing the law to the letter of the law? What more are they supposed to do? That no one's breaking any laws. We just changed the laws. That was the point of the revelry.
I think there's a thing that they want them to be like almost like official what they call it, tattletales type thing. Like I did this job, a small film thing, and there's a COVID person on set, right? It's his job to give us all the COVID talking, all the this many people here, remember hands, face, space, all of that stuff. And then once we were filming, what he would do is every now and again you'd sort of see him, he'd be poking round his head round a corner and he'd like see sort of three people together. He'd start to make a beeline for them. They'd catch him out the corner of their eye. They'd start to separate. Masks that had been around the chin would start to creep north.
Over the nose, yeah. I mean, good on him for getting off his arse and actually trying to do his job. If it were me, I would probably just have yelled, "Oi, you!
Yeah,
get 2 meters." Do you guys measure stuff in meters here? I don't know.
Yeah, weirdly enough, the official thing is in meters. In America, it's in feet.
Yeah, of course. They don't use any metric anything unless they're dealing drugs, do they?
Right. Exactly.
And even then, I don't know. I'm just going by hearsay of what some friends tell me.
But get this, right? The COVID supervisor, as we were leaving, at the end of the day, outside saying goodbye, he's like the last person, coincidentally, in the line that we're saying goodbye to. All right, see you later, mate. And he went, "Take care." Yeah.
Well, I mean, he is on the set of of presumably some sort of dramatic theatre-esque thing.
So he was in character.
Yeah, he's playing the role of somebody who isn't over all the measures involving COVID. So, bravo to him. Should give him a SAG or whatever they give over here.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah,
A BAFTA.
BAFTA. It's a great acronym.
So what are your thoughts on all of this COVID stuff? I presume you've had your jab, which I have not.
Not yet.
But
my thoughts on everything.
But your partner must have, right? Ash
yes,
must have.
My partner has. She's had her first of 2 jabs.
Right.
Yeah.
So is Caitlin. AstraZeneca?
I think so, yeah. The one that recently came out with all the clots.
Nah.
Prior to Johnson & Johnson. Yeah, no, I'm not fussed on that.
22 clots in 34 million doses.
I was going to say, those are astronomically small figures. And the big shout that's been happening all over the internet is comparing those clotting figures to the clotting figures of birth control, hormone birth control for women, which is obviously the risk of clots for those are far higher, given that you take them daily.
Right.
So, 2 doses of COVID vaccine, risk of clots, daily doses of hormonal contraceptive, much higher, possibly for however many years the average woman takes that for, ridiculously higher risk. But hey, makes a good headline, don't it?
Exactly.
It's a great headline.
Yep. MSM, a great headline.
A great headline.
Speaking of great headlines, I know you were about to tell me what you thought about COVID, and I'm interested, but this, I thought you would get a kick
one of us is.
Shanana, I think that's how you pronounce his name, Gusmao slaps mourners and sleeps in street outside Timor-Leste hospital in COVID-19 protest. This is their president.
Country's first president joins mass rally disputing government's assertion that Armindo Borges, great name, died from coronavirus. I mean, so who's saying... That's right. So the government's asserted that this bloke's died of coronavirus, which, given the current state of the world, entirely plausible.
Yeah.
And this bloke here, who's the president, is disputing that.
And slapping people in the street because of it.
I mean, that's bold.
Is this how you feel, I guess, is my point. Are you to the level now of slapping people in the street? When we first, you were the first ever guest on this podcast. Back in the beginning of my pleasure, it's just a fact. Back in the beginning of lockdown, here you are back again. I remember you saying it was like a dream for you. All your wildest fantasies had come true. How do you feel now?
Being back on the podcast, it's worn off, mate. It's worn off. Are you asking about the podcast or the over Corona?
I'll never get the true answer about the podcast. Let's see if I can get the true answer about the COVID.
I mean, it's one of those things that we've been dealing with for more than a year now. So it's the novelty has worn off, which means the novelty of being under any sort of government restriction has gone from fair enough, lads, do what you need to get it under control. Sorry, and ladies.
And ladies.
Which is what that phrase is used for when you fuck up and say lads. To being like, all right, I'm still going to respect, the measures you've put in place, but really, you're taking the piss now. It's been more than a year. I mean, everyone's hindsight is 2020. It's very difficult to genuinely criticize a governing body for the decisions it's made in retrospect. But at the same time, I could have done a fucking better job, No, I couldn't have. But I am still a little bit forlorn and miffed at how poorly the whole thing seems to have been handled. And again, it's difficult to make any sort of criticism without sounding a bit like a tool, because again, I'm not the guy who would have done better, because what do I know? I'm not even in that profession. But as a citizen of this country, it is my right to criticize the government.
It's your right, and I think it's fair enough to expect the people in charge to do a good job of being in charge.
A better job. At least a better job.
At least a better job.
The number of flip-flops on things that really shouldn't have been, they shouldn't have been in a position to flip-flop on. The big one that pissed me off was masks. So old mate, whatever his name is, the head honcho of talking science next to Boris.
Is it Valence or Witty? They both look kind of the same.
Professor, yeah. I mean, I don't want to misquote the guy, so I think it was Witty, but I couldn't be sure. Whoever was the head medical dude who said masks are unnecessary early on in the pandemic, like March, April last year, I think it was. And then now masks are like the standard procedure for everything. And there's part of me that's just like, so what data did this dude see that made him sure that it was okay to go out and say you don't need masks? Because I can understand saying from a scientific perspective, and I've got a little interest in science. So from a scientific perspective, I can understand saying we don't have the data to support either option. I can't tell you that wearing a mask will have any effect. I don't have that data. I can understand saying that because if you don't have data for something, scientifically speaking, you can't make a comment. You don't have anything to back it up with.
Right.
But to go out and say, you don't need masks, don't bother with masks.
And yeah, just to clear it up, that is true. Yep. So 4th of March, 2020, Chris Whitty instead advises people to regularly wash their hands, tell public not to wear masks.
Yeah, and I would just I'd love to ask the dude, what made you so sure that you could say that to the public with confidence? And then obviously in retrospect, he's had to not only rescind that, but mandate the wearing of masks in enclosed spaces.
And now like they kind of advise even two. And the washing the hands thing, I mean, they still say it, but you're not going to catch COVID through your hands. You're going to catch
it's far less likely.
Yeah, it's going to through droplets in the air, isn't it? So
far more likely.
Mask. Yeah. But here's the thing: even though it's a novel coronavirus, it still is a coronavirus, and like all coronaviruses, they're spread in the same way, and we know masks work for that. Yeah. They've been around for ages. We already do, like you said, we actually do have some information about that. Yeah, it's a new one. It's different in certain ways, but it is also similar in certain ways.
What annoys me is the certainty. What I could have been okay with was him saying, we don't know that masks are going to be effective at this stage. We're not advising them because we don't have any data to suggest that they are a necessary measure. If he'd said something along those lines, I'd have been like, well, yeah, fair cop. If you don't have the data, you can't advise. That's just good science. Yeah. Even if you have a hunch, you're not supposed to go on the hunch because that's the opposite of what science is. But for him to have said, you don't need them, and then evidence comes through, oh no, you do need them. In fact, they're the main thing we need. Because at one point there was someone, and this is going back 6+ months, so I don't actually know where I'm getting the answer from. It might have been the CDC in America who had their own issues, but so one of the regulatory bodies said that if some ridiculous figure like 80 or 85% of people wore masks, you'd end the pandemic without needing a vaccine. It's like, just wear masks in public and the coronavirus numbers will fall because it won't be able to spread. And I'm like,
but they also had the same thing that Whitty said. Look, this is from
and that's the thing. The
March, CDC reconsidering advice against public wearing of masks.
Yep.
Literally against. So not even saying they won't do anything. It's like, no, don't wear them.
Yeah.
Like actively.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like, how do you have a stance one way and then you have to flip-flop to the exact opposite? Because either you got some incredibly wrong data that informed that initial erroneous decision, or you just made a stab in the dark and went, nah, should be right, mate. Don't worry about
there's
it.
some more nefarious reason underneath it.
I mean, look, if there's nefarious reasons, then everything that we're speculating about is kind of moot, isn't it?
Okay, I'm not going full 5G or anything with that, but I do remember early on that there was PPE shortages.
Yep.
So
could have been that. No, that's a fair point.
Which I don't think is the right thing to do. You should, the ends don't justify the means. And then if you put one message out there and then later on you're like, no, forget that. It's the complete opposite. People are like, well, why'd you say the other thing? You're going to erode all kinds of trust, even if it's like, well, we're running out of masks.
Yeah.
That still doesn't sort of.
And in that case, you would say masks are a necessity, but we need them for the staff who are fighting it on the front line. Everybody stay home. And if you have to leave, wrap your face in a scarf. or wear a bandana around your face or whatever, which I see people do anyway, and they get away with that. Because I think it's like a 3-ply mask is like the minimum standard, and very few people have or wear those. But I mean, anything covering it's physical droplets of moisture. So anything that is blocking your exhaled breath, or a cough or a sneeze, is going to be mitigating spread to some extent. If they just said that from the get-go, it would have, I don't know. In retrospect, it makes me question the entire, it's just a bit arrogant to have one answer based on presumably no data, and then to 180 on it based on data, presumably again. So whichever screw up it was, annoys me that screw up was made. That really pissed me off. But the rest of it's fine,
Yeah. You're finding a way to operate.
I mean,
you're working in a school at the minute, aren't you? So twice weekly tests, students in masks, you in masks.
Yep.
The whole thing.
That's it. It was
What is it like? Is it Orwellian or is it fine?
It's fine, really. I mean, kids are hugely resilient, especially the ones that I'm around. They've got they moan, half of them moan like the staff do, and everyone gets on with it. Some people have an opinion this way or that, but everyone does as they're told for the most part, and they adjust, they adapt. That's what kids are good at. You put them in pretty much any scenario and they'll come out with some semblance of adaptation to that scenario, because that's just how they are.
Who do you think will be the worst affected by this in the long term? Like what age group? I mean, obviously people who've actually got COVID or long COVID, or they're the worst. I didn't mean it like that. I meant sort of developmentally. Like, I feel sorry for like people who've just graduated from high school or something, right?
Yeah, that'll be rough.
That's a rough group.
Yeah.
Kids who are just joining a new secondary school. Yeah. That seems like how the
year sevens from last year.
Yeah. Who do you think?
I mean, it'd be hard to pinpoint one specific demographic, and I think it's probably most accurate, but least interesting. It's probably most accurate to say anyone who is in, as you've said, a vulnerable position. So if you're in a transitory phase, whatever.
I think both are fine.
If you're in a transition from one stage to another, or one style of living to another, you're probably going to have a rougher time of it. The other one I would add to that is that people who are already vulnerable for whatever reason. So those who don't have great home lives, those who are have underlying psychological issues, those who have just any extenuating circumstance that is going to be put over the edge by something like COVID or global pandemic, because none of us, those of us who have handled it well have still not had a good time of it. So you can only imagine, those who have already got pretty, who would be having a bad day, even if it weren't the middle of the pandemic. The pandemic's not making it easier for most people. So I would say those groups who are already vulnerable are probably going to have had the roughest time of it. But yeah, anyone transitioning, the year sevens that we had come in, to a virtual environment, they seem to have done pretty well, to be honest. They had some face-to-face time in September last year, I think, where they kind of got into the swing of how things worked in real life. But yeah, I mean, we won't know for years, possibly decades, what the effect were. Yeah,
that's the thing, right? Because if assuming that this June the government says does happen, and we lift the social distancing measures, and we in effect massively hope that happens, in effect go back to normal, then the whole thing will have been like a year and a half, give or take. So I wonder, like, is it long enough for that to be a domino effect later on, or is it short enough that it's a blip and it doesn't affect like your development? Because I remember I was on the tube, I don't know how long ago, and there was a little baby there, and they had this kind of like bewildered look in their face, like they do, they're very young, they were like looking for faces. It's really important that they see faces, and they couldn't see face. Everyone is wearing a mask, but the mum pulled her mask down, and actually made the kid calm down, just seeing like expressions. And I just wonder if like there's some group of youngsters who have been stunted in some potentially like, this is hilarious stuff, isn't it?
Comedy podcast, you say? Yeah, sure, I'll be in on that. I mean, come on, we can make stunted babies into something funny. I know us. Yeah, no, you're completely right. I imagine there will be unforeseen side effects at a population level. Although, to make that a little less bleak, I would say that the younger you are, the more plastic you are, in the sense that you have the capacity to adapt and transform to different scenarios. And there have certainly been people who have gone through worse scenarios than what we've just been through and come out on the other side okay. But that's a really interesting point, because a baby who has a year of early development without seeing lots and lots of different faces could conceivably struggle to, I don't know, recognize facial cues or have difficulty socializing. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not that deep into that particular area. So, but I presume there could be some sort of long-term effect.
That could just be my overactive imagination, but that's one of the things I
assumed it was. You were just trying to mine comic gold with stunted babies.
Yeah, well, you can stack them like a house of cards.
You can. Yeah, they would make for great Jenga.
Do you think when comedy clubs come back in this country that there'll be people will want COVID material, or they'll be sick of it and it will just go back to what it was like before?
Really good question. Yeah, I have no idea. I'm kind of thinking that if you don't early on at least pay it lip service, in the same way that if you follow an act who is wearing a giant black strap on, which I have done numerous times in my short career, and not the same dude either. It's a bit of a trope. But if you don't address something, the elephant in the room, rest in peace, Patrice. If you don't address the elephant in the room, then you are going to probably have a little bit of a weird energy. But then I imagine also, like all the other kind of cliches in comedy, like Tinder and all that, you will very quickly find that you can't touch on that subject unless you have something brilliant to say about it.
I wonder if people will be less into dark comedy as well, because we were sort of living in such a golden age before, and with that comes this sort of cynicism of like, oh, everything's shit type thing, and audiences would lap that up, right?
Yep.
Where now it's like everyone's had such a shit time. Maybe they just want just gags and like
that's the
safe, lovely.
That's what I train. I alternate between gags and horrifically dark stuff. So I'm happy as Larry to go back to gags. It's just not what anyone ever wanted. So I've actually had this conversation recently, well, relatively recently. This same line of reasoning is: will people still want darker comedic topics or darker comedy? I don't think that there's going to be much of a tangible difference, except for maybe in the mainstream. You might find a bit more whimsy and stuff, but really, I think people's senses of humor are pretty fixed once they're developed. And good comedy is good comedy. Doesn't matter what branch you're kind of going for. Once you get to a certain level, which you and I can only ever dream of reaching, you're kind of just funny because you're funny. That's all there is to it, irrespective of how you can pigeonhole that person's style. That's the hope.
I suspect you might be right. It will become sort of like, acts who've got like a thing. Let's say like Brad Williams, who's a little person. Like one of his first jokes will be about that. Yeah. Address, like you say, the elephant in the room, or in this case, the dwarf elephant in the room. Sorry, cheap gag. But now we've all got the same elephant. Yeah. But at the same time, it seems weird to just go on stage and just go straight into, so I was on Tinder the other day, whatever bullshit that people do, without nodding to this new shared reality that we're all in.
You have to recontextualize your material. But at the same time, I think there's a lot to be said for pretending that the last year and a half hasn't happened, and just letting people have their escapism.
Yeah,
and I think that's where gags come in, because gags are not, there's, broadly speaking, if you're going to put things on a spectrum, there are people who talk about reality, and there are people who are almost surreal in their whimsy. And I think that the latter is of a lot of value if reality is just too bleh for mining for comedy.
Yeah, because a proper gag works just in and of itself.
Yeah, it's internal. It's not. It doesn't require any external context. You build the context into it. Yeah. You just need shared language or a shared. Sometimes you need a shared external context or a shared understanding of something. But yeah, I mean, gags. That's why I like gags, because gags are gags. You can tell them. You can send them in a text. You can tell them on stage. You can, unless they pivot off a particular inflection or a particular pun or something, they're pretty universal.
Yeah. I introduced a friend to Mitch Hedberg the other day, who never. Yeah. And he's a gag machine, but also has that amazing unique delivery. So it's like an extra bonus on top of just being a gag merchant. And it's like this is comedy from, at this point, what, at least 2-3 decades?
Yeah.
It's
about 30 years, I think.
Self-contained. Whereas like if you're watching an act from the same time do bits about Reagan, it's not going to have the same. No, but I think you're right about the I think there'll be a desire to have this like COVID adjacent reality, because like I was talking to a friend the other day about like TV shows that they liked, and they were like, I can't even remember. This is how much I wasn't interested in what they were saying. I can't remember the name of the TV show, but this is because they went, and this new season is all about COVID, so there's people in masks, and I was like, I just shut off the part of my brain that was actively remembering. And just waited for them to finish so I could say, I don't want to watch that. Yeah,
pretty much. I think that, when you have that kind of everything is based on the context of now or a particular time, you give yourself an end date. You give yourself an expiry date for when that material is going to be just, people are over it, or people don't understand the context of it to get what is being said.
Yeah.
Or sensibilities change, like we were talking obliquely about Patrice O'Neal. His kind of stand-up probably wouldn't get the same reception, or probably would have had to evolve if it existed in the modern 2021 era. But if you can take yourself out of your own cultural context and watch his material in the context in which it was written and delivered, you can see the genius.
He's brilliant.
He's like, just from a purely comedic perspective, and it's boring as dog shit to intellectualize comedy, but fucking it's happier than COVID. His gags are on, or his jokes are on another level. He teases out, I hesitate to say truths, but he teases out things which are true from his perspective.
Well, and I think a lot of what he minds is interpersonal relationships, especially romantic,
and like, perhaps true for that perspective at that time, even if not objectively true, especially from a modern, 2021 perspective.
Sure. So like the goalposts of that kind of move, but like the underlying truth of romantic entanglements. Yeah. A lot of what he says is really just dead on. Yeah. And then, there'll be a line that's like, oh yeah, it's the 90s or something. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
It's the 90s, or, there's still that kind of unconfronted element of misogyny that is not necessarily in him, but is in the culture that he's, talking about. For someone who, I've only ever seen his stand-up special and him on with Colin Quinn.
Tough Crowd.
Tough Crowd, yeah. So I only really know him from his stand-up and his appearances on that thing. But yeah, from that alone, the guy's comedy was on another level to the people he was quote unquote competing against in terms of, being the golden child of that age.
Have you been recently rewatching some classic comedy? Is that where this has come from?
Constantly cycling. I find I quite like to go back in time and watch comedians from bygone era and just kind of milk them for the inspiration that they are. Not really in terms of material, but just in terms of
yeah, right, yeah. By now, people have forgotten these guys.
Yeah, what have people forgotten? Guys, it's parallel thinking.
Who have you been watching recently?
I think the last person I rewatched a bunch of Dylan Moran stuff, and Dylan Moran's my favorite comic ever. And I just rewatched it, and I'm now sitting there appreciating more and more the way in which he speaks and the poetry of his speaking voice, and just the way he can entrance an audience with the rhythm and the lyricism of just the way it's not even that his jokes are necessarily, they're not to everyone's taste, but his delivery of his jokes is done in such almost like a songbird, or I think the Irish word is shonaki. It's like the storyteller around the campfire or something. You Googling that?
Yeah, it's a new word for me. I like that.
He has this kind of, I don't know, half poet, half storyteller, all comic. And it's just, now that I've been doing comedy for a while, and that's kind of like, that was the reason I wanted to do comedy. It's like, hell, if I can do that, that's the best thing ever. And I'm nothing like that at all. So when I watch it, I'm still in awe of it, whereas if I watch people who run gags the same, or, in a similar vein to what I do, like I'll watch Mitch Hedberg and just think the mindset that he was in when he thought of that is enviable. Even his run-of-the-mill gags are just like he's in a different world when he writes those. He's not looking at reality from the same way that the rest of us are. To see those connections and make that link and create that little kind of bit. But yeah, when I watch Del Moran, it's just like, oh my Lord, why can't I do that? Why can't I speak like a songbird?
Yeah, Sheniki is how it's anglicized. Obviously, in the Gaelic spelling, it has a ridiculous number of E's and A's and strange I's and D's. It's
got accents and stuff over the vowels, does it?
Quite difficult to. Yeah. I mean, how would you pronounce this word? Seanchaidh.
Yeah, I don't speak any Gaelic, so I couldn't even begin to pronounce it. The way I've heard it pronounced is Shonaki or something along. That's my like Australianizing of the Irish accent, speaking the English word of a Gaelic word. Yeah.
Speaking of Irish, today I had my my passport application witnessed, and I'm sending it off probably tomorrow or the next few days.
Not for the Republic.
That's yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm not going to join those Fenian bastards up north. No, not digging.
I was going to say, have you seen the news in the past month?
Or past century, indeed.
Yeah,
but
it's kicked off again.
Yes, it has. Yeah. No, for the Republic. Yeah. So I'm going to become Irish before I become American. That's the plan.
That's probably a good way in. They quite like the Irish over there, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They have special visas and travel links if you're Irish, which they pretty much don't have it for anyone else. I thought they might have it for Brits, but
no.
Do they? But I
think it's something to do with the massive influx of Irish people that went over some time ago.
Yeah.
No. Again, I get all this from comedy. I don't actually know any history. I just hear little snippets and piece together a bit of what I think is history, but it's probably just BS.
Well, yeah, the problem with learning history from comedians is usually it's a nugget of truth and then a load of hyperbole.
Yeah, it's like a pig in a blanket. There's no pig. There's no blanket, but you still, everyone loves pigs in blankets.
I love pigs in blankets, but I have a question for you. What... why are you a pig in a black? No, take that off. What are they in Australia? Because in America, pigs in blankets are not the same thing that they are here.
Well, what are they for starters? Because I only know the phrase. I don't know what it's actually referring to.
So in the UK, pigs in a blanket is, as I understand it, a mini sausage wrapped in bacon.
Okay, and in the States.
Like a mini sausage roll, like puff pastry and a sausage and maybe a
with
fig.
a sausage or with mincemeat rolled into a sphere.
I believe a
Sphere.
sausage. I'm slightly operating outside of my knowledge base. I think it's a sausage.
Better get this right, mate, because you'll get hate crimed for this shit. You have to get pastries right.
Okay, I'm looking. According to Wikipedia.org, heard of it? It's hot dogs in croissant dough.
There you go. Pastry dough, yeah. Short pastry. Well, that was my understanding. It's like a little frankfurter in what we would call not short pastry, like a phyllo or a pie dough crust. No, probably not pie dough crust, but like what you would wrap a sausage roll in or have on top of a pie or anything like that.
I see.
Yeah, that's my understanding of it. Because we have sausage rolls are almost as big a deal as meat pies in Australia, but they're both separate things. So a sausage roll is a mincemeat log wrapped in.
You make it sound so appealing.
That's what it is, and when you have one, you know exactly what you're having. Wrapped in a kind of puff. I don't want to say puff pastry, but I guess it's a similar idea to like I wouldn't call it a croissant pastry, but I guess if you bake a sausage in it, maybe it is. But it's that flaky puff pastry style dough, but it doesn't puff up huge. It's kind of layered. It probably is freaking croissant.
What would you call a sausage wrapped in bacon then? A heart attack? What does that not have?
It's a good Thursday night, Ruskin.
Thank you very much.
So we've done precious little actual laughing on this episode of the podcast.
Overrated. I found something that I think you'll like though. Speaking of laughing, it's called Simple Wikipedia. Have you heard of it?
Yeah. Is that where everything's like explain it like I'm a 5-year-old? Yeah. Type in black holes.
Okay.
See what comes out of Simple Wikipedia when you type in black holes. See what happens when you type it into normal Wikipedia. Just don't go Google.
Here we go. Simple Wikipedia. A black hole is a region of space from which nothing, even light, can escape. Whoa. Slow down.
That's a really good, simple explanation. That's like basic English. Anyone could understand that. It's a region of space from which nothing, including light, can escape. Nothing can escape it, including light, which is what gives it its presence of blackness. Yes. Absence of reflected light. Yeah.
But I think that you're getting a bit complex there for Simple Wiki.
Perhaps.
I think this next sentence, in fact, is too complex for Simple Wikipedia. Look at that.
Sort of curving of space-time. I mean, as soon as you say space-time and it's highlighted in blue, okay, you say a general theory of relativity, that's complex in and of itself. But even if you just gloss over that and pretend people know what that is, it's the result of a curving of space-time caused by a huge mass. So space-time, what?
Space-time
and
is
also a huge
model.
mass. Excuse me. I've never curved anything due to my mass. Yeah, I mean, my very rudimentary understanding of what a black hole is, that sounds right, but I'm not the person to ask. A supermassive black hole, I have on good authority. Never mind.
Peter's anus. Here we go. SMBH, as they're also known, is a black hole with a mass.
Why do we need to acronymize that? Acronymize. Why do we need to acronymize supermassive black hole? It sounds fantastic. It sounds a little bit like supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, only because it starts with super and then has a bunch of, staccato consonants after it. Sounds like the start of a beat poem.
I think this is a bit better than does sound like the start of a beat poem. I think this is better, more in Simple Wikipedia's brand. How supermassive black holes get started is not yet known. Like they're a band.
But you've got to sing it. A supermassive black hole is a black hole with a mass that is between 10 to the power of 5 and 10 to the power of 10, the mass of the sun. Scientists are confident that almost all the galaxies, including the Milky Way, have supermassive black holes at their centers. Oh, that's a somber note to end on.
Right?
They've all got supermassive black holes at their centers, which means we're all being slowly drawn towards a supermassive black hole. Hey, how do you like this for it's not a theory. I could never call it a theory. But how do you like this for an uneducated sentiment that
Okay.
for my rudimentary understanding could
Always
conceivably be right? The idea that the Big Bang started when the previous universe had timed down or wound down due to entropy into essentially nothingness, from which the Big Bang that started our universe occurred. And this is a never-ending cycle of Big Bangs, inevitable entropy, burning down to nothing left, from which Big Bang, entropy, repeat.
I wish you'd explained it in simple Wikipedia.
Let me start again.
So it's like an accordion.
Yeah, let's say it's like an accordion. Like you get to the end, except instead of you pull an accordion apart and it goes or whatever sound an accordion makes. Not musical. Not even close. There's an accordion player listening to this podcast just thinking, yeah, that was so inaccurate.
So you pull an accordion apart and it goes.
So you pull the accordion apart, but when you get to the end of the accordion's range, instead of you then compressing the accordion, your hands reappear at the center of a fully shortened accordion, and you just expand the next accordion. So you pull the first accordion into nothingness, and then your hands reappear together with an accordion between them, and you just start pulling the next accordion apart. And
what happens to the previous accordion?
It just gets ripped into nothingness. That's entropy. Do you know what entropy is?
Simple Wikipedia tells me that. Isn't entropy sort of like everything disintegrates into chaos and
I think it's
dust.
Expansion. That's my rudimentary understanding of it, is it's the continual expansion of everything away from everything else.
I thought
that,
it was...
again, is probably wrong.
Entropy, according to Simple Wikipedia, my new homepage, is it's a measure of the amount of energy which is unavailable to do work.
All right. So I was nowhere near correct.
I thought it was just that things... look, see, there we go. A measure of uncertainty or randomness. So I was partly right. You were partly right. And neither of us were that good.
Completely wrong. I wonder what I'm talking about then, because there is some sort of phenomena that is everything. Oh, hang on. I'm talking about thermodynamic entropy by the looks of it.
Of course you are.
Part of the science of heat energy.
It's a mistake you make all the time. Thermodynamic entropy.
Yeah. Well, this is part of the science of heat energy. Is a measure of how organized or disorganized energy is present in the system of atoms or molecules. It is measured in joules of energy per unit Kelvin. Simple, wait, Wikipedia?
Wait, do this bit.
Okay. Imagine that a group of molecules has 10 units of energy. If the energy of the molecules is perfectly organized, then the molecules can do 10 units of work. However, if energy became less organized, this has lost its charm. So
it's harder. It's actually harder to take in the information.
It is, yeah. So as entropy increases, the energy becomes less organized. The molecules might only be able to do 6 units of work because of the increase in entropy, even though they still have 10 units of energy in them. So the amount of energy is the same, and the amount of molecules is the same. But as entropy increases, the molecules can only do less work.
I like this this cup of tea analogy. The tea has a lot of energy compared to the room the tea is in. Over time, the heat in the tea will spread into the room. The tea becomes colder. Once the tea became cold, there's no more heat. The tea has reached total entropy.
That's a way better explanation. And kind of, I was still wrong, but that was what I was trying to explain when I didn't explain it at all. When I screwed up, I was trying to do that, which wasn't a screw up, but I didn't. Instead, I said some BS that sounded like it could have been true.
In answer to your original question, the accordion view of the universe, I haven't heard it in that particular way before. I've heard it, so I've never thought about it. I've heard of the idea of it expands, reaches sort of maximum expansion and then begins to contract, reaches ultimate contraction,
and then that's the explosion.
Big bang, start again, etc. That's the cycle, instead of expanding so far that it tears apart of the fabric, and then you're left with a seed at the begining which starts to expand
nothingness. Again. Yeah, I mean, either way, we won't be alive to see it, so it's a moot point. We won't be alive to see anything. Nothing interesting is going to happen before we die.
What about
fingers crossed? I just like for everything to be pretty cool until I'm out of it.
Till you're done.
Yeah.
It's a bit late for that.
I mean, that's what I mean. Given that given the state of the world due to global pandemic and all the other stuff we're ignoring until the global pandemic is done. Have you noticed the resolute lack of news about climate change whilst the pandemic has been on? Sorry, climate catastrophe, it's now been renamed as.
That makes more sense, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's getting to the point of being like, the worst case scenarios, we're there, and we're looking further now. We're going to have to redo our worst case scenarios.
Yeah, because people already are a bit averse to change, but they can change isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think it's very hard to say, was it a good catastrophe or a bad? It's not many people who view catastrophe in those terms.
What was the chaos isn't a pit, it's a ladder? That was Littlefinger in the artist formerly known as Game of Thrones. Who I refuse to speak about now.
Why is that little man still writing those books? Do people give a fuck anymore?
I mean, presumably they give a fuck more about the books than they do about the abysmal TV show and the follow-ups they're trying to do.
What a disaster.
If I were George Martin, and I'm not, I should stress this to your viewers, I'm not.
Even though superficially, if I were to age you 50 years and shrink you.
Is he small, is he?
I believe, simple Wikipedia will back me up. I believe he's like 5 foot.
Yeah. Oh, good for him.
And he looks a bit like a hobbit.
He looks like Gimli. No, he looks like an old Gimli, maybe.
Yeah, you're right, actually. But I was thinking more of the working cap.
Yeah, true.
This doesn't say his height. Let's see if we can find his height. What's your guess?
Well, I can only see the top half of his torso. So how long's a piece of massive rope? Why has he got so much rope behind him?
That's his thing.
He's either in a shipyard or he's in his dungeon.
5'6".
Oh yeah, I mean that's not particularly short, is it?
Yes, it's very short. Considering, well, the average height for men in the Netherlands is 6 foot.
Yeah, but that's the Netherlands. They're all Norse gods up there, aren't they?
That's right.
They're all beautiful people. Not all of them, but most of them. The ones that I've seen have been.
Most of the bodies you've killed have been.
I didn't kill them. They just happened to stop working while I was present.
To be fair, trendcelebnow.com says that he's 7'9" and 373 pounds or 100.
That's not him. Kilos. That's his appendage. That's his dragon tail.
I like the fact that these things exist.
Yeah, complete and utter farcical news outlets that peddle misinformation. Yeah, can't get enough of them.
It's quite good, isn't it?
It's wonderful. What a wonderful world we live in. See, if I was George Martin, and I'm not, again, got to stress that, I'm not George Martin, but if I were George Martin, I would be incredibly peeved at the, let's say, the downturn in quality of my namesake's TV show, of my work's TV show.
When they outstripped the raw material of the books, and they were like, "We'll just keep doing it."
Yeah, it was noticeably poorer quality, but then that final season was such poor quality and so unfulfilling given the incredible build-up. I mean, you got to give it to them. D&D are edging champions because they managed to edge a couple million people to a really anticlimactic season 8 finale. I just remember watching that last episode of that last season and just thinking to myself, I'm never going to rewatch these. I'm never going to watch. You got to understand, I was hugely into it, insanely into it, and have been for almost a decade. And then I watched that last thing, and it was just like, it's dead to me. I've never had that kind of like just. It was a mixture of sadness and anger, and just a kind of, it was like a sigh of like, oh, so that massive part of my life and massive source of enjoyment is just nothing. It's like ashes in my mouth.
Is it is it forever tainted?
Yeah,
like the idea of sticking on episode 1, you're like, what's
exactly? Because it doesn't matter how good any of the initial stuff is, it is building towards a colossal disappointment. And now that I know that, if I'd never watched season 8, I could rewatch the first 7 seasons again and again and get as much out of it as I did, the first couple times. But knowing where it goes, knowing how poorly resolved it was, I can't watch any of the characters go through any of the stuff because it's not worth it. There's no payoff at the end.
Well, the payoff is Bran is king. I mean,
that's what we all wanted, wasn't it? I remember when I first started watching, I saw that boy climbing that thing, and I was like, yeah, that bloke, he looks like he could run a couple kingdoms back to back. If you can climb a tower, you can run a kingdom.
I think it would have been a great move for them to do that 3 episodes before the end. Do the whole, let's make Bran spoiler alert, whatever. Give the woke brigade what they want.
Spoiled already.
And then, because the realities of Game of Thrones world is, by the next episode, he'd have had a number of attempts on his life.
Yeah.
He would have become corrupt. Mm-hmm. And then after a few episodes, he gets killed by his brother. That's where that's going to go.
By the law of Game of Thrones law, that's how that had to happen. Yeah, I mean, I don't even care that he was king. I just care that none of the character development meant anything. It was all for nothing. And all the build-up, like every little bit of build-up. I love misdirection. I love the twists. I love the gritty realism that I don't know if it actually was gritty realism, but who cares? It doesn't matter. It was entertaining. Of like having a character built up to be this archetypal hero and then having them just killed off screen or, ended by a nobody, or they just happened, like, Robert Baratheon, this incredible warrior, and then he's killed by a boar because he's too drunk to aim his spear. Wonderful, because that's exactly how real life kicks you. Real life will kick the crap out of you with something you were not expecting to happen. And I think that's fantastic to put that in a fantasy setting.
Absolutely.
Especially in one that's so high profile. But then to turn everything around at the 8th hour in this case and have it all just be real fairy tale and romantic and not link up to any of the previous stuff, and just have characters who have been developed for 8+ years, behave in a way that is not explained by any aspect of their character development. That's like, okay.
I know. We could actually genuinely run through all the main characters, and it does actually apply. Let's not. You know what? What I thought of when you said that is, I visited this castle however long ago in Slovenia. I'll show you it. It's fucking amazing. It's built into the side of a mountain.
It does sound incredible.
Which is just astonishing. I think I've spelled it slightly wrong. I think it's Postonia, and I've done Postjama. I don't know. There he is, Prejama Castle, which is fucking epic. And then when you go there, you're like, wow, look, it's a fucking castle built into the side of a mountain.
Yeah.
And you sort of think, that's amazing. And then you go in, and very quickly you realize, oh, living here would be terrible. Everything is damp. There's moss growing everywhere. Yep, it's dark as fuck. And you're going around being like, oh, yeah, okay, I see why this would be actually a really big letdown. But there's this amazing history of this, a robber baron who takes over the castle one night, kills the guards, establishes that as his home base with his 3 wives, and he fends off the army for weeks who are trying to get in. He's got a local maid who's using the secret cave entrance to bring up food. Amazing story. And you're like, wow, what a hero. You know how he dies? Taking a shit.
Yep.
Someone fire the window. He's taking a shit at the window. Someone goes, oh, look. And they fire a cannon at him.
Yep. Perfect.
That is how those stories should go. Instead of
That's how
right?
that's how a lot of death happens. Is just, you know, you get dysentery and shit your guts out, and that's just it. You're still a human being. It doesn't matter how heroic your mythos is built into. You're still, if you are a real character, a real life human, you are still a real life human. You're subject to all the same physical laws as everybody else. And I love it when that is the kind of thing that, you know, you've got these epic stories and they happen to gloss over all the icky parts of life, or they'll play up certain icky parts to make themselves seem gritty or grim.
Yeah.
And like, I just like it when occasionally there is a little sliver of reality in a fantastical story that's like, it's not garish. It's not there to be, it's not there to show off about how, you know, gritty it is, but it gives you that sense of like, oh yeah, this is all the real, it makes everything else seem better. It makes everything more tense because
I think
like,
that's fair enough. People are, you know, the stupid response, the simple Wikipedia response to what you said is, you know, people are like, oh yeah, there's dragons in it though, so how realistic can it be? It's like, no.
Have you been to Australia?
Yeah, there are dragons. Like, fuck you.
There are some fierce creatures around.
Yeah. No, but it's like in the world where dragons do exist.
Yeah.
That's just a thing that exists. That's no longer stupid.
Yeah.
It's stupid to have narrative jumps that don't make sense in this world you have created.
Yeah.
And then to be like, that's why people hated Lost. They just started breaking their own rules.
Yep, exactly. You have to have internal consistency. And even if you have an open magic system, like Game of Thrones has an unexplained kind of, you know, vague magic, you know, abilities in the world, they have to function by a certain rule, and it has to be pre-established. Otherwise, you lose all weight. You know, in the same way that Gandalf riding towards the Nazgul in Return of the King, and he fires that same white beam of light that he's used throughout. Any time you see Gandalf do some magic, like he's only got 3 or 4 spells up his sleeve, and that's his thing. That's what he does. It's like this is some, you know, great and powerful demigod wizard thing, and it's like, yeah, but he can't just be a you know, a ringer for the end game. He can't be the dude who comes in and just like, check it out, I'm a fucking wizard. You know, otherwise the story sucks. Because no one wants to see the massively powerful character just breeze through everything.
Right. Yeah.
There's no story to be had there.
What, did you ever watch a program called Captain Scarlet?
No.
So do you know the Thunderbirds?
Yes.
So Captain Scarlet was like a Thunderbird. He was like, it was the same marionette thing. And he might even be in their extended universe for all I know. And look, there he is, Captain Scarlet.
It's very James Bond looking.
Isn't it weird that for a period of time, marionette entertainment was perfectly legitimate and mainstream?
I mean, Jim Henson is not a marionette, but he's, you know, the next best thing. And he's still, you know, an essential part of certain styles of cinema.
But hold on, hopefully it will play you the intro. And this is why I always hated Captain Scarlet.
They've just shot 21st century television with a cylindrical arrow. I can hear nothing. Viewers at home, can you hear anything? I can hear the echoing of the sound of my own voice. Oh, that's a nice looking set though.
That's annoying that you can't hear the noise. You're meant to be able to hear the noise. Anyway.
Can you sing it to me?
I can, except
but shan't.
I'll show you. I can sing it, but I don't know all the lyrics. But
just hum the melody. Yes, too upbeat.
It was very upbeat, and the thing is the first few lyrics were Captain Scarlet indestructible. So the whole thing was you can't kill him, he can't die, nothing bad can happen to him.
Yeah.
So what is the fucking point?
What story are you telling there? That's why I never got invested in Superman, is that like the only way you're ever going to develop that character is if you A, kill people he cares about, or B, find a way to not have him be indestructible.
Yeah.
Or alternatively, and this is I think the route that The Boys went down, the TV show The Boys, is you have the Superman character become corrupted absolutely by the absolute power that he has, which is that old trope of, power corrupts absolute, power corrupts absolutely. And I think that's a much more interesting way to go with the character, is like, this guy's invulnerable and a superhero and a complete asshole. Just the worst person you could ever hope to meet. Because
that's a good way to go. Is that good then, The Boys? That's this thing.
I got through the first season. I'm not big into superhero stuff. Like I got through all the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but only because they're really most of them. Actually, no, I didn't even get through it all. I haven't seen several of the better movies in the series, just purely because I'm fatigued of it. Yeah. There's only so many times you can have, a person discover their powers, and then some bad stuff happens, and then they overcome it to become better.
It's always about the Tesseract, and I feel like I missed the film where they explain why the fuck anyone cares about the Tesseract.
Well, that's what you were trying to find, wasn't it? The Tesseract at one point. Because you look like Loki in the Thor movies.
You bastard.
You look like Tom Hiddleston in Loki outfit.
Except he's got stringy hair and I've got luscious curls.
I wasn't going that deep. I was just thinking, moderately handsome brunette.
Fuck you. Also, don't call me a brunette.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that degrading to you? Exceedingly handsome brunette.
Okay, well, I won't watch the Boys then. Fuck it.
I mean, you can if you got nothing else to do. Don't let me.
You know what I've been watching? Catfish. You ever watch Catfish?
No, is that the one about the guys who in the Mississippi Delta? Yeah, the Mississippi Delta, who they go noodling. And they're like wading waist high in the water, and they stick their hands in holes, and they
what is
the catfish.
What is
that?
Noodling?
What it's about, Ruskin? Because it sounds like that's what it's about, mate.
I got distracted, but I want to a simple Wikipedia noodling, because I think it might be something different
to what I'm describing. It's the weirdest name for a completely legitimate means of getting dinner, and has nothing to do with noodles in the slightest, to my knowledge, unless you're like wriggling your fingers like there's some tasty noodles for the fish. But yeah, noodling looks like it'd be fun. I've never done fishing? It. Yeah, I've never done it, and I don't know much more about it than having watched a couple YouTube videos. But apparently you're wading through a river system, you find a hole where a catfish might live, you stick your hand in the hole, the catfish bites you, you grab onto the inside of its head, and then you pull it out, and then you've got yourself a catfish.
Oh my God, you're right. Yeah.
It's just the most novel way of catching a fish is, I want to eat that fish, but fair's fair. I'll let it eat me first.
Yeah. I mean, at least the fish is going out on a high, being like, I'm going to have this, boy.
Oh my God, I'm going to be eating on this for days. Yoink.
Yeah, it is a method of catching catfish using your bare hand. This is catfish in the figurative sense rather than the literal.
When the person you don't want to have sex with pretends to be someone you do want to have sex with, and causes you to try and rendezvous with them for some form of intercourse.
This is exactly it. Yeah, this is what they've made. They've made many series of it. It's on Amazon Prime. It's wild.
Is it?
Yes, it is. You know what? It's really interesting from a sort of psychological point of view, because it's not always what you think it's going to be, which is some horrific troll using a model's pictures and trying to bilk some poor sap for money.
Yeah,
it's by no means always that. Like,
it's average-looking people looking for a genuine connection that they don't think they can sustain with their average-looking face.
Yeah, a lot of it's that. So it's kind of heartbreaking from that point of view.
I think there's a lot of that in the world.
There's a lot of like vengeful exes as well, sort of like trying to lure in, or sometimes they're still going out with the person and they're like, I'm going to create a fake profile and try and honey trap them. Or the wildest one was the one I saw last week, which this guy was like, he's like, okay, I've been in a relationship with this person for 6 years. They go and meet him. They're like, he's like, I've got some concerns. We've never video chatted. It's like, okay, well, that 6 years. And he's like, we've only chatted on the phone once. And she's Katy Perry. Sorry? Yep, it's Katy Perry. and he shows emails, from perkatie@gmail.com or something, being like, oh my God, my new single launches today. I'm so excited. And this guy's like, see, she really, confides in me. And they're like, right, give us the details and we'll, they go off. They do some basic searching for who this person is. And it's this woman from England, just using Katy Perry's pictures. They find the email address, they find the phone number associated with it, all of that. He's like, no, that doesn't sound right. They're like, right, we're going to go to England. Let's go and meet this person. They fly to England. They go to the countryside. They meet this woman. This woman goes, yeah, it was me. I was kind of doing it. I didn't think it was going to go as far as it did. And as you do.
On a weekend, I'm always creating fake email accounts to convince people I'm a celebrity so I can engage them for 6 years in an online relationship.
It's just a 6-year whim. Just a 6-year whim. We've all had those.
We all have 6-year whims.
But then they break away and they go to the guy. They're like, okay, so, are you finally, and he's like, very clever of Katie to do that. Yeah, I see what she's done. She thinks I'm going to fall for it. This is just the type of test Katie would put me through.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? So they meet again with this woman and they manage to convince this guy, look, you're not talking to Katy Perry. None of it makes any sense that you would be, etc. He finally comes around to it. And they have this catch up at the end of the episode, 2 months, after filming, they do a little mini catch up. And they're like, how are you? Have you moved on? And he's like, yeah, I see how ridiculous it all was. I'm looking up for myself now. I'm only meeting real women. They're like, okay, great. They have to catch up with the woman. And she goes, I received this email from him. And he emails her going, hi, Katie, you'll never guess what happened to me. I got flown to England to meet this woman who says that they're like, this guy.
But that's so sad. That's so tragically sad.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, at some point, I guess, the delusion that he thinks is reality is so much better than his reality. But how many people do that with all kinds of things? There's plenty of people who are that delusional about, I don't want to go for the low-hanging fruit, but there's,
But it is.
There's plenty of ways you can, pretend that you're engaging with someone so far, quote unquote above you, that it just makes you feel special. Yeah. That's tragic.
It is, but there's really compulsive viewing. They're not usually celebrities. I'd recommend it. It's a good one.
That's what do they call that? That's Schadenfreude. It has to be Schadenfreude.
Sometimes it is Schadenfreude. That episode definitely was. Yeah. Then that's the exception that proves the rule. I don't know. I never liked that bit of language.
It's a weird one. It took me a long time to figure out what the hell that was. What that was on about. It's like the exception that proves the rule, but surely if there's an exception, it can't be the rule. And then it dawned on me, no, it can only be a rule if it has an exception.
This
because you can't have found all the things if you But even saying it doesn't sound like it should be.
Doesn't feel right, does it? It's like have your cake and eat it too.
I like that one.
I know, and it makes perfect sense. But you have to learn that having your cake means owning rather than like have your cake, which means eat it. It doesn't mean that.
That's not how I interpreted it.
What do you mean? There's no interpretation, Tom. It has a meaning. You can't have your cake, as in still have it and eat it, because then once you've eaten it, you don't have it anymore.
I just make another. I'm not what's his make off, Great British Bake Off, but
All Hollywood.
That's the Badger. Yeah, but I could bake a cake.
You're an idiot.
I'd be fine. Got the ingredients. I've got flour somewhere. I'm sure. It's bread flour, but
it's an idiom, Tom, and you are an idiot.
Rude. Come on now. We're all friends here.
Speaking of bread, I'm pretty hungry and I haven't eaten all day. So,
well, now, whose fault is that?
What have you got?
What have I got? I have a duck. I have an entire duck slow cooking on the counter with garlic, onion, and ginger, and my house smells insane.
Oh.
And I'm going to make a Thai red curry pour over sauce, steam some vegetables, boil some rice, and live in luxury on the couch in my underwear.
Watching catfish, hopefully.
Watching catfish. And probably watching Bob's Burgers.
Yeah. Oh, well, there we go. Just as good, arguably. Cool. Well, I'm going to go and see what Caitlin's cooking. Hopefully something edible, because I forced her. Gender stereotypes live and rule in this household, don't you know? Yeah.
He's a pretty good cook, though. There's also that.
There is also that.
It could be talent-based.
Speaking of talent-based, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me and bringing such cheery topics to bear.
I don't think we started laughing until about an hour in, and we've only done an hour 20, so snippy. That's
a good standard for me, actually, for there to be any laughs at all and not just crying in misery.
Oh, right. Well, I will see you soon. Are you going to come around for my birthday?
Oh, God, yeah. And is that? I already know. It's the same as my sister's.
Well, I would invite her, but I hate her, so... Only joking, Katie.
She's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, aren't we all?
Yeah.
Tom, it's been an absolute pleasure, and you will be back on this show, and I can't wait to see you. Love you all.
Love you too, buddy. Live long and prosper.
Adios. Thanks for listening to the show. If you've enjoyed it, please give us 5 stars and consider becoming a subscriber and maybe even supporting us on Patreon. Really, really, really helps me continue making this show. If you haven't enjoyed it, then you can fuck off. Many, many thanks to Nils Hennis-Steer for the amazing music and to Dave Fox for the cool artwork. Please keep coming back every week for more Bliss of the Abyss.
Message 1.